Being a content creator, every day your life is a struggle to master three things at once: writer, public speaker, and entrepreneur. Being an educational content creator amps up the difficulty even more. To lighten your load in 2025, I've been giving you the 5 best tips I found all year, with number 5 being my hardest learned lesson that boosted all 3 areas. Let's start with the most essential area, the one that must come before any of the other steps can happen: writing. You know that on YouTube, getting to the point as soon as possible is a matter of life and death. People drop off after a minute. Well, why wouldn't they? You haven't proven yet that your video can give them something useful. This is hard with educational topics. Complex topics like mindsets were taking me 2 to 3 minutes to give enough background to be sure that the viewer wouldn't get lost once I got to the big idea. I found the solution to this in George Blackman's educational scriptwriting course, the board game intro. When you have friends over to play a new board game, you don't teach them how to play by sitting them down and immediately explaining every single rule in the manual. That's how you teach your enemies that you're hoping to get to leave. Nah, you're a kind and wise soul who actually likes people, so you explain the absolute minimum needed to get them started playing a practice game, only then explaining the rest of the rules after they've had an intro tour of the game, seeing a whole lot for themselves. So instead of packing your video introductions with all the information needed to understand your whole video, split it in half. Look at how much is needed to understand your first point and keep only that info. Then push all the rest of it until after you've completed your first point. After your first point, when people have a rough guess of what's going on and now trust that your lesson will be a good one, then give them all that information needed for the rest of your video. This has worked great. It's had a surprise extra bonus on my scripts by raising the emotional charge of simple instructions. But most importantly, I'm finally able to get to the freaking point within 30 seconds of starting my video, even for my favorite way out there topics. Now that I was explaining my videos in a way interesting enough to watch, it became obvious to me that I was making a huge mistake about what my videos needed to say. When I met with Charlie Hooper, he immediately had the answer. But it took a while for me to understand. YouTube is entertainment, not education. This annoyed me a lot at first. The entire reason I made this channel was to start teaching people things that I wish I had known sooner. Naturally, I thought this meant I needed to create excellent lessons. Take these difficult topics and make them easier to understand, more interesting to listen to. If you're thinking that too, then you're right where I was. Finally, months later, I realized why Charlie was right. I remembered my own path, and I remembered that detailed lessons weren't how I got to where I am today. It was creators that had slowly built up my trust, like Charlie and Lucas Rockwood, focusing on convincing me that there was value in learning these new things. People like us are smart and motivated. It's guaranteed we will track down the instructions and learn the how-to part. The sticking point was knowing that these odd and abstract topics had gold waiting in them at the end of the rainbow. So I've made a big shift in how I teach my topics, and already it feels way better. With this clarity, it's both easier to write my scripts, and they feel more packed with truly useful relevance. With that, people now want to watch the content you're making. But your videos will be sabotaged if your speaking skills are shooting yourself in the foot. I've clicked off plenty of guys that had an idea that I wanted to hear because I couldn't stand to listen to them. In fact, one of those guys was me. I was so determined to fix this, I spent 2 years and thousands of dollars on speaking training. Finally, in October, I learned one thing that made such a huge difference that I finally went from being annoyed by my voice to actually enjoying listening to my videos. The key was removing a special type of filler words. You already know to remove your ums and ahs, but massively more impactful than that is removing your hesitation words. These short phrases like you know, kind of, and like are tricky because these words do have useful value sometimes. So a teacher can't just tell everyone to simply eliminate them all the time. If you haven't already heard about them, that's why. Hesitation words are worse than saying nothing. They actually shout uncertainty and insecurity. For example, if I say, I was supposed to go on a hike, but I kind of slept in. did I sleep or not? You can't kind of sleep. You either did it or you didn't. What the words "you know" and "kind of" tell people is that you're embarrassed, that you're not certain about what you're saying. It's a defensive measure to beg the listener to not scold you for wasting their time. But if you're not certain your words are worth listening to, why would anyone else waste their time paying attention? This attitude of hesitation demolishes the audience's interest faster than anything I've ever seen in speaking. Spend 2 hours to fix it, and I guarantee you'll have a night and day difference, turning your speaking from an anchor holding you back to wind in your sails. These stories aren't entertainment. Now that your audience can grow, let's look at the final end goal of making good videos: building a profitable business from them. The most powerful business skill I found all year took a winding road through 3 books, multiple webinars, and a whole lot of frustrated cursing. Just ask my podcast co-host Ryan. The skill? Using storytelling for sales. But wait, sales? We only care about education. Education is sales. Convincing people your lessons are worth learning and worth remembering. The trick with learning to write stories for sales is that all the writing advice you find out there is for writing useless entertainment. Advice about writing stories is even worse. That advice is actually the opposite of what you need to do for functional storytelling. The advice I got actually made it harder to write my scripts. This is when the months of foul cursing began. Sorry again, Ryan. But then after months of banging my head on the advice I got from Matthew Dick's book, Storyworthy, I got to talk with Matthew and ask him why things weren't fitting. He pointed out that what I was trying to learn is a different style of writing: sales writing. Things were finally starting to make sense. So I read his new book on that style, Stories Sell, and then I followed that trail to Paul Smith's book, Sell with a Story. That one's written by a businessman, and everything fell into place. How long should an educational story be? 2 minutes! In Stories for Sale, is there such a thing as having too much emotion? Oh yes, there is! How can I revise my stories to have the right amount of each? All of those answers. After all this pain, once I got the hang of it, functional storytelling added an enjoyable thread of emotional to my explainer videos. It also improved the sales copy in my website and even my morning stand-up meetings. Sales writing gives you more than just great retention graphs. This gets your ideas remembered, making them spread, leading you to paying clients. Storytelling for sales gives you more than great retention graphs. This gets your ideas remembered, making them spread, and leading you to paying clients. Now with all 3 areas handled, that brings us to the most powerful lesson of last year, which made an immeasurable boost to all 3 areas. But this lesson was more than a little terrifying to learn. A few months ago, I was sitting at my couch, staring at my MacBook screen, fingers on my keyboard, my hands not moving, but my heart racing. I was thinking, crap, what the hell did I get myself into? I wasn't on a couch. I was between a rock and a hard place. I'd gotten the opportunity to check off one of my top life goals, to talk with my hero, the man himself, Charlie Hooper. The founder of Charisma on Command had agreed to do a coaching call with me, but I'd realized the script I was planning to review with him was unacceptable. I'd started my YouTube channel making videos about topics that were easy for me, like whiskey or how to build a nice recording studio. But these came across as flat, empty, because this wasn't what I truly wanted to teach. It was just the maximum I could make with the courage I had. Reading the script I had, I was ashamed of how unimportant its goal was. It hit me that if I never got another shot to speak with him, I would regret wasting it by not working on the topics I truly cared about. But that was a much harder topic to write. That was a difficult to explain lesson that I'd learned from trying to connect with my father. One that had changed my life, but one even further beyond my writing abilities. Since Charlie was the #1 person in the world I wanted to make a good impression on, this harder topic ramped up the level of fear from scary to terrifying. Sitting in front of my keyboard, Staring that fear full in the face for the first time, the crucible of fear itself taught me the first half of this lesson. I realized that no matter how frightened I was, no matter how large the stakes, I would rather go down in flames trying to build the thing that truly mattered to me than win by playing it safe, hiding behind something else. That realization felt amazing, and it poured a whole new level of fire into my work. So my fingers began to move, and the mad dash to write that script began. By the day of our meeting, just preparing for it had taught me so much. But there still remained the obvious problem that while I loved this topic, I wasn't enough of an expert to teach it, and that would take years. But like the expert I expected, Charlie taught me the solution and only needed 30 seconds to do it. I'd started, sorry the script is really rough. To tell you the truth, trying to teach these things that I still suck at feels pretty embarrassing. But I didn't want to waste this opportunity, so I had to try. He told me, first of all, that was a really good call picking the topic you care most about. Sincerity and vulnerability are the true currency of YouTube, and right now, it's becoming even more so. I felt really good about that. But what he said next stopped me in my tracks. But I have to ask, what makes you say you suck at it? That you're not good enough at it to teach it? I'd never asked myself that question. The answer was so obvious, I never needed to. But it hit me like a punch in the chest. I didn't have an answer. I started laughing with embarrassment and a whole lot of relief. I'd been applying these ideas every day for years. My life had changed night and day different because of this. Every one of my friends had pointed out how much I've changed. And most important of all, I've become the happiest and most fulfilled that I've ever been in my life. With that one question, Charlie taught me the second half of the lesson. Your topic being the most important thing to you is itself the very credentials you needed. There's nothing holding you back. Today, start working on the topics that matter to you so much that they scare you. It's the most powerful change I made all year, improving all 3 areas of my creative work. Now, if you're ready to start working on your most powerful topics, you might find that figuring out what topics are most important to you can actually be pretty hard. So in this video, I show you how to get clarity on what your deepest motivations are, and those reveal clearly what topic is most important to you.